My name is Dr. Audrey Lipschutz, and I own my own private practice, and my specialty is psychodynamic therapy.
I'm Lillian Abernathy. I will be playing her client today. I'm 22 years old, and I am working in the real world.
So, Lillian, what brings you in today?
I've just, been talking to some friends recently, and they just have been urging me to talk to a professional, but I just have a lot of hesitations with that, and I don't necessarily love, this interaction.
Okay. Well, what specifically makes you think that your friends wanted you to come in today?
I guess sometimes I just, I worry a lot, and so I think that is sometimes worrying to my friends, and then I worry about worrying them, so it's just kind of like a downhill spiral of me worrying about everything under the sun on my day-to-day life.
Okay. Well, where do you think that stems from? Why do you think you worry so much?
I don't know. It's just kind of always been a part of my life.
Well, I guess we can evaluate everything and step back a little bit, and you can tell me a little bit about your childhood and your parents and your, support system, and we can just kind of go from there and see what, we can find out. So tell me about your childhood.
What do you want to know about my childhood?
Well, just your relationship with your family,
Okay.
just how, you were in school, just anything you feel free to share with me.
Well, there was 4 of us in my house, so it was my mom, my dad, and my older brother. He's 4 years older than me. He was a pain in my butt until he left, and then I missed him, so I feel like that is how siblings go sometimes. But now we're super close, so that is another story. He's one of the people that pushed me to go see someone. My parents are great. They're very loving. My mom is like my best friend. We do a lot of stuff together. When I can go home, I still try to go home. But growing up, my parents both work, and they both work for family businesses or own their own business. So they never have like a 9-to-5 job. Like they would get home at like 7 or and leave super early. My dad was also a hunter and still is, so he like takes extended trips. But I was always provided for. Like I always had everything that I needed, and for the most part, the things that I like wanted that weren't excessive in nature. So, my family was great. My grandparents were awesome. They would step in when my parents couldn't necessarily be there. Then I have like the aunts and uncles and cousins and.
So you made a little face there. Do you want to talk about your extended family a little bit?
I guess our extended family would do a lot together, but I just wouldn't always like to see one of my older cousins. He just wasn't my favorite person to see.
How did he make you feel?
He made me feel uncomfortable, and like I didn't want to be there anymore once he arrived. Or like I would want to try to be in a different room than he was.
You don't have to answer this question if you don't feel comfortable, but was there anything that he did or that made you feel uncomfortable, or was it just his presence? Like, where do you think that came from, that discomfort?
He did some things, but it was a long time ago. But I just never necessarily told anyone about it. And it only happened like 1 or 2 times, but just kind of festered inside of me, and so it just makes me uncomfortable when I see him. But it happened when I was really little.
Do you want to talk more about specifically, or would you rather not? It's totally up to you, but I feel like we could learn a lot about some of the influences that had on you if we talk about it.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions? I've just never really talked about it.
Talked about it, yeah. Well, I guess we can just start from the beginning of your relationship with it's your cousin, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, just I guess where it all began.
Okay. So, like I said, he's a few years older than me, and my family's really close, and so we would do things throughout the summer. I mean, throughout the year, but like once you're in school, it gets a little tricky to see other people. But yeah, we would hang out and do things. I was like in kindergarten-ish, so I was like 5 or 6. And one time, we were just, he had a pool at his house, and so I would go over there a lot to swim. And then some things happened, and I didn't necessarily enjoy going over there anymore.
Okay. Is that where it started? Is that the only instance? You want to tell me more about other things that happened?
That in the pool was the first time it happened. And I was like 5 or 6, so I had like floaties, and he was a little older, so he could swim a lot. Like, it was not easy for me to get away from him. And I also didn't really understand what was going on and why he was doing what he was doing. And then I kept telling my parents that I didn't want to go back, but I never told them why, because it just made me feel dirty, and I didn't want to talk about it. And I had to go back because they went on a work trip, and that is where we always stayed. And I slept in the room with his sister, and at one point in the night he came in, and then I refused to go back over there, but that was like a year later. But yeah.
Okay.
I just kind of eventually told my mom that he just made me really uncomfortable from like a few things he did, but I downplayed it a lot. But I mean, she could tell that it made me really uncomfortable, but I just didn't want her to see him in a negative light or to see me as I saw myself.
So what did you see yourself as?
I was just like upset at myself that I was like helpless, and this older cousin who I trusted a lot and really enjoyed spending time with, like all of that was taken away from me so quickly by like one action. And obviously, like I'm talking about it in like a lot broader of a sense. Like my 5-year-old self wasn't like, oh, that's what happened and that's disgusting. But I guess I just had this like not great feeling, just like this pit in my stomach from after it happened. But I didn't know how to explain it or what really happened. But like, I was a sociology major through undergrad, and I just graduated last year, and I guess like that opened my eyes to a lot of things in the different classes that I took to actually go through what that was and what actually happened to me. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. Sometimes I start babbling, so I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's good just to kind of let everything out, especially if you haven't talked about it before. But so it sounds like your cousin, some actions that he did made you very uncomfortable, and you haven't really processed it up until now. So it is good that you are processing. It's difficult to do that, and not a lot of people care to reach out because they are scared to. So I admire you for that. But how do you feel if I talk about the relationship between that event and some worrying you have today? Do you believe that there could be a correlation, and if so, how do you feel about that? I
mean, I don't necessarily think it correlates just because I was so young. But by all means, say what you're thinking, because it might make sense to me after I hear it or can talk further through it.
So, our childhood experiences definitely have more of an impression on us than we think.
Okay.
We internalize things, but we just don't comprehend it the same way. So we don't think about it until we're an adult, just like what happened with you.
Right.
So, based on research that I've been looking into and school, I learned that, it's really difficult for children to process these things, which can manifest itself into mental illness, just like overall like a lack of mental health.
Yeah.
But you don't want to consider those things. You don't want
Right.
to consider what happened. You just kind of want to make things up or think that, or just kind of erase it out of your head or suppress it, and that's totally normal. So based on what I just said about childhood manifestations and how that carries into your adulthood, do you kind of understand where there could be a correlation, or do you see anything with that?
Yeah, I guess when you said like childhood experiences, I like briefly remembered in one of my classes like about adverse childhood experiences, like ACE scores that children have. And it's like I don't want to admit that is why I worry and I'm so anxious, because that means that is like something else that he took from me.
Yeah.
And like I have no ability to change it necessarily. Like it's just kind of a part of me. But yeah, I mean that makes sense, and it's kind of annoying that I've never thought about that, but that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I understand that it is frustrating that you can't change what happened to you. It sucks that we can't go back and change things, but I feel like if we can identify your strengths and some positive aspects and your resilience, then we can kind of move forward and make a change plan of not changing what happened, but changing how we can cope with things that trigger it or make you worried all the time. We can we can change your mindset and maybe develop some problem solving skills and kind of reorientate your mind into strengthening your strengths.
Okay.
So what do you feel like some of your strengths are?